So good morning or good night, depending on where you are, and welcome to another interview of the She'll Do in the Couch. Today I'm joined by Kate. Uh, she has a solo project called Nott with two T's, and they just released an EP last Friday, and it's really interesting EP. So we're here to talk about the EP, talk about the inspirations for the songs, and anything that comes up in the chat. So first of all, Kate, how are you this Sunday?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
I'm good. So you're in the Michigan area, right?
Yeah, I am in square in the middle of Michigan.
Nice. I lived in Michigan in 2004, 1 year.
For 1 year, where'd you live?
I was in Lansing, Michigan.
All right.
Yeah.
State capital.
Yeah, I was in Lansing, Michigan, and I'm from the tropics, so the change was pretty, pretty like heavy to me, like especially not seeing the sun that
Absolutely.
much in
Really,
that area.
you gotta love winter.
Oh yeah, the winters there are very harsh. So I know that you released an EP this Friday called You Only Thought You Were Imagining It.
I did.
And I was reading that when you were first working on this solo project, you wanted more of a doom metal album,
Yeah.
but you got more of an alt rock. Like it's when I was listening to this EP, I really thought of the 90s.
Yeah. What can I say? I did. I set out, I intended to record much, much more of a metal album. One of the problems I have is that I don't have a metal voice. And when it became clear that this was going to be a solo project, I kind of had to rethink it. I mean, I hope you'll hear some metal influences in the riffing. But
Yeah,
yeah,
there's some doomy stuff on some of the longer songs on the EP.
yeah, and I'm working on a follow-up that's quite a bit heavier. We'll see what happens though in mixing, right? I mean, you
Yeah,
got
but the songs like Frost and Reunion had more of that doomy gloom feeling, but mixed with alternatives. So I can tell by your shirt that you love Sonic Youth. Like growing up, I'm thinking you grew up like me in the 90s. Uh, I love the 90s. You know, I can talk about 90s bands and music all day. Like, what were your influences growing up?
oh man. I will never forget the first time I heard Liz Phair's Exile in Guyville or PJ Harvey's Dry, right? So I was at exactly the right age when those two records came out, and they just completely changed how I thought about music. I mean, I was also, my friends at the time were all like super into pop, boy bands, stuff like that. And as they were getting more into that, I was getting more into indie alternative. So I'd say, yeah, early Liz Phair, PJ Harvey, Sonic Youth. I mean, certainly, all the grunge Seattle bands were important to me. I just read an article recently that we internalize all the music that we listen to like between the ages of 13 and 21. So the fact that you're hearing the 90s on this EP is not surprising at all.
Yeah, no, I also read a study that says that most people stop listening to music like after high school or college. That's not the case for me. I keep listening to new music, but what I do feel is like that music that you grew up with, it holds like nostalgia. Like if you hear something that sounds or reminiscent or inspired by that sound, you're going to gravitate to it. Uh,
Absolutely.
I think it's gonna take you back to memories, remembering. Like I can like there's some albums that I could hear them and I can remember where I bought them, what I was doing, not the exact day, but I do. It's incredible how I remember a lot of that time. And you can ask me what happened next week in one day, and I can't remember.
You want to hear a funny story about that?
Sure.
Um, I was too young to drive. I don't know exactly how old I was, but in the 90s, it was really cool to smoke cigarettes. And I decided I was going to go get myself a pack of cigarettes at the gas station. So I rode my bike, like I'm on my bike, right?
Mhm.
Go buy this pack of cigarettes for not very much money. And then I went to our local record store and bought Siamese Dream by Smashing Pumpkins in the long box, right? The
It's
CD
right
long.
there.
It's such a great record. Got home, I've got my cigarettes, got my CD, and it was just like this total 90s moment. So yeah, when you say you remember exactly where you bought it, yeah, that's a whole story that I have.
Yeah, no, I remember, like, for example, the Smashing Pumpkins one, I have it right there. I actually went that day to buy the Beck album because Loser
Ah,
was out. But I don't know, I saw the Smashing Pumpkins cover, and I don't know why I said I have to have this.
yeah. Both of those are
And
good albums.
yeah, yeah, to me, the Smashing Pumpkins one is one of my favorite albums of all time.
Oh yeah, me too.
One of
For
my
sure.
favorite bands, especially on the guitar tone. I can't play guitar, but I love that when you listen to the tone on that record, the guitar, like you can tell it's Siamese Dream. So yeah,
Absolutely. And it's I read a thing about that album, a thing, I should be more specific. I don't remember where I read it, right? But Butch Vig and Billy Corgan like had this moment where they were tracking 8 or 9 guitars. And the fact that they were able to pull that off and have it not sound muddy or bad,
yeah,
just it blows my mind. But yeah, the guitar sound on that, the drum sound on that record
yeah,
is fun.
it's an amazing record. So when you sat down to write these songs, you you want to make Doom, but how did it? What was the part where you said like, no, I'm gonna do more alternative rock? What was the shift?
That's a good question. I wrote these songs in kind of pieces and parts, and then I'm sitting putting them together. And originally they were super distorted, big, 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 loud drums. And I was sitting and listening to early mixes, I think an early mix of Frost. And I thought, it's not working. Right. And so, like, I mean, it sounds so corny, but it's kind of like you got to let the song tell you what it wants to be. So I pulled back a lot of the guitar plugins I was using and listened to just what was happening pretty clean, like straight out of the tube amp, and just redid it all in the mix. Oh, and a lot of that, as I said earlier, came about as I was tracking vocals. It's kind of like, I'm looking at the EQ and kind of where my vocal sits, and
Mhm.
then where the guitars were sitting, and thought, I've got to make room in like these lower mids. And that's kind of just what happened. And we'll
Yeah,
see
it
what
sounds
happens next time.
organically. And I know that the first song that you put out was the Impossible, because
Yeah.
there's a demo version and then there's the remastered version.
Mhm.
What are the main differences from when you had the demo to the remaster? What changed in that song?
Um, the demo is a little muddy. I mean, I could nerd out here about technical production stuff. It's just a little muddy. Like when you listen to it, there's a lot of, the only way I can describe it is congestion,
Mhm.
like in certain ranges on the EQ. And I thought, all right, I got to fix this. So I actually ended up completely re-recording the bass, doing a little bit with drums, fixing the vocals, multi-tracking the vocals, and then kind of just, sat with the EQ on each track and made room. And the other big difference is I hired a mastering engineer once the
Yeah.
mixes were done, right, and worked with him to get what I think is a pretty warm sound. There are some cold tracks, but it feels like a warm album to me.
No, yeah, it's a very relatable album, especially I really want to talk about the lyrics
Okay,
on
do
this
it.
album EP, whatever, because there's some, especially the Valley. I was listening to the lyrics about being 40,
Yeah.
having kids, everyone's married. You weren't kidding about this shit. I'm like she's talking to me. Well, she's talking to a lot of people. Like you think,
Yeah.
like when you're young, you're rebellious, and then like yeah, a lot of people, it's like everyone's like married, or it's
Hmm.
the same thing. So it's kind of nostalgic about like going out, smoking cigarettes, going to parties, but it does also get very serious at the end when you're talking about a guy that did you harm and died. So it's a song that goes through, it goes like from nostalgic to serious. It's like that's why I think the name is interesting. It's a valley.
Yeah.
It goes through highs and lows. So I thought it was a very interesting song. So can you elaborate more of like the inspiration for
Sure.
lyrics, especially on that song?
No, you pretty much nailed it. It's a nostalgia song, and on this EP, when I used to, the musical journey is a whole other topic, but I wrote the music first, and would like sit with it, right? Like, what's the vibe? Like, what color is it? You know, like what are we going for here? And I just started getting these flashes of memory, and you know, I mean, a song, it's not necessarily autobiographical, but that song in particular is informed. There was a guy who did me harm and then died. I wrote the lyrics. He died like last winter, and I found out about it from a mutual friend and was like, oh my God, right? Like, why is this affecting me this way? Like, I haven't spoken to this guy in 25 years.
Wow.
And so I started thinking about that and just about stuff I used to get up to as a teenager. So there are flashes of memory there. And you know, it's really, that song is about nostalgia, it's about escape, it's about being an adult with I'm going to quote myself, jobs and cars and bullshit. You know, I mean, it's about all those things, but I really wanted the lyrics to take us on a journey kind of in the way the music does.
Yeah, it really does. You know, the lyrics and the music, it all goes hand in hand. At
I'm
least
happy
to me
for
when I
that.
was listening to that song.
You never know what a song sounds like to a listener, right? So I'm thrilled to hear that. I must have pulled it off on that song.
No, yeah, I think the vibes that you're going for and the cars and everything, the bullshit. And, you know, just the other day, my daughter was saying, like, oh, I want to be an adult. I'm like, no.
No,
I'm like, enjoy
no.
your childhood. Like, I remember being young and my parents telling me, like, enjoy it goes fast. And I'm like, oh, yeah, right. And it really does go fast. Uh,
Yeah.
like, like
I'm,
when I think of the 90s, I think, oh, that was the other day. No, that was 22 years ago.
oh yeah. I mean, I still think of 2002 was like, oh yeah, you know, 3 years ago. And
Yeah,
now it's, you know, it's a joke, it's a meme, but we are the intended audience for that meme. It's a little scary.
yeah, no, it's and sometimes when people like hit it on the radio and they say, oh, let's play an oldie, and then they play a Pearl Jam song. I'm like,
Oh,
no, it hurts me.
I know. It's
So I
you know what,
wanna, yeah,
the other thing is, I wanted to end that song kind of thinking about how people who were my age then viewed my friends and me, right? You know, like whatever. Um, and so ending it kind of with, you know, they would never understand who we were going to be. You know, now our generation is the generation that just needs to get out of the way. You know, Gen X, I don't know, I could make Gen X jokes all day
yeah,
long.
we're Generation X, and you know, there's a lot of stuff that there were good things in the 90s, but I was just watching the Netflix documentary for Woodstock.
I
Uh,
watched that the other night and I had forgotten all that crazy shit.
Yeah,
Right?
no, I remember being in Puerto Rico and watching it through TV because I know they passed it on MTV. And, you know, just seeing the documentary, how crazy it got, how many rapes there were there. And
Yeah. The
just
misogyny.
they called it Woodstock, but it was all about greed at the end of the day, you know. Like I wouldn't like just watching the documentary, I'm like, I can understand why everyone rioted at the end because they were fed up, you know, everything was expensive.
Absolutely.
And
12
yeah,
bucks
to
for a bottle
me,
of water in 99.
yeah,
You know,
that
now,
was the death of like the 90s. And also when they did that Woodstock, the grunge and those, because the alternative bands, Nirvana's, the Pearl Jams, they had positive messages, but back at the lower end of the 90s, new metal was at the top of the game. And let's face it, new metal wasn't the most it was very macho, very like break stuff. I listened to it back at the day, but when you think at it, like it really didn't fit like the peace and love that they were trying to bring. You know, it's
Not at all.
And
And in that documentary, there was the guy who was, I think he said he was 22 at the time, right? And he's trying to tell the promoters, like, hey, this is not going to be good.
yeah,
Nobody's listening to him, right? Because they just want to sell the tickets. And yeah, I watched that with like all in one sitting.
I watched it because I'm gonna do a video with a friend of mine that we do videos, and we're gonna go deep into that one and the HBO one.
Oh,
Uh,
cool. Yeah.
I think I enjoyed a little bit more about the Netflix one than the HBO one. I don't know why. I think I liked that it was in three parts. But yes, no, when you think about it, after that, I think concerts and festivals now are more organized.
Yeah.
Like in Chicago, they had the Riot Fest. Then they had your Lollapaloozas, your Ozfest,
Pitchfork.
more organized.
Yeah.
Uh,
I went to Pitchfork a few years ago and I kept thinking when I was watching that documentary, like there's the whole thing about the porta potties,
oh
right? And
yeah,
I kept thinking,
disgusting.
you know, Pitchfork had enough porta potties. Those are the kinds of things, when you're planning a big event, like, man, you cannot cut corners. And they
Yeah,
just,
I just think they just did that, and they're like, let's make lots of money because apparently Woodstock '94 didn't make money, and let's see what happens. But yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, going back to the album, I want to show the EP cover because I like the cover a lot. And something about the cover, it reminded me a little bit of the band Agalok. That's
hmm,
like a doom metal band with the horns, but also it has the color painting, so it has that alternative feel. So the album title, you only thought you were imagining. Does it have like a special meaning, the album title?
that is a really good question. Um, I wish that I could say yes. I think it was all with the album title, and I do also want to give a shout out to the printmaker who made this. Her name is Randy Richards. You can find her on Instagram. She did the print, the background print. The title, I'm hoping, kind of pulls it all together, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not necessarily meant to be super deep, but there are a lot of emotions in those tracks. And
Yeah, there are. Yeah.
and sometimes, when you're feeling really strong emotions, at least when I'm feeling really strong emotions, it can sort of feel like dreamlike almost. But it turns out, no, wasn't dreamlike, wasn't imagining it. These are the emotions. Um, so that's it in a nutshell. It also
Yeah,
sounds,
no.
I
Plus,
like I like the rhythm of the title.
yeah, and the album cover, I like it, the pastels, and it really fits in with the music, I think. Uh so this being a solo project, you did the guitars, the bass, did you also do the drums?
I did.
Everything. Uh if you were going to go, would you ever think of like taking this and doing some shows with it?
I've thought about that. I
Yeah.
don't I would have to put together a band. I mean, I'm in another band. Um, we do totally different kind of music, but yeah, I would need a band. I would need to not be a complete a-hole control freak with my band. Because usually, like in the past, when I've written, it's been much more collaborative.
Mm,
Like the drummer is going to write their part, and rhythm guitarist is going to write their part, and I wrote and played every note.
yeah,
Uh,
it's your baby.
right. So I would need folks who, and I would never want to stifle anybody's creativity, right? Because like I view a live show as each musician is coming together to make this sound, and then I thought I had a friend like, hey, why don't you just play stripped back versions? And it's like, that's not going to work because these songs are all about the arrangement.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I thought about it. I would very much like to play them live. I
Yeah, an
also don't
acoustic
know.
set, no, it needs the other instruments
I
to
don't know what
for the
instrument.
atmospherics.
Yeah, like when I play guitar, when I play bass, I don't know.
No,
But
yeah.
that has been on my mind. So stay tuned. I'll let you know.
Yeah. So Out of the 6 tracks on the EP, which one do you think was the most difficult to write and why?
Ooh.
I'm making you think here early on Sunday.
Sure. The most difficult to write musically, lyrically, both.
Could be both, musically or lyrically.
Musically, getting the arrangement right on Frost.
That's a long one, yeah.
It's long, it goes through different, mixing it was a little bit of a nightmare. Lyrically, I'm going to say Valley.
Valley, yeah, no, yeah. I would
Valley was
agree
for
with you.
the most challenging track. It was the hardest track to get exactly the textures I wanted. It was the hardest track to mix. It was doing the vocals on that track took what felt like forever. It had several iterations that I should probably delete from my computer in case anything ever happens to me. Yeah, that song, I think I'm gonna revise it and just say Valley was the hardest song.
Yeah, no, and as you can tell, that was the one that every song is good, but that one grabbed my attention because I was like listening to it, but I'm like, I want to like read the lyrics, like old school, when you go and read the lyrics.
Yeah.
And I had to scroll down because I listened to it on Spotify, and the song and the lyrics are not synced up yet, so they don't move. So you gotta move them.
Oh,
Yeah, there you go. You can tell Spotify, hey, what's up? let them sink and move. But yeah, no, that song, it's a great closer. So yeah, I think a lot of people that like those 90s, like the PJ Harveys, the early Liz Fair, Sonic Youth, that type of music will dig this EP.
Yeah.
And I think it's the music is good, and I think the lyrics are every song it sounds like very personal, like you would really put a lot into the lyrics, and vulnerable. Some of the problems that I have with new music, I think music more in the 90s, people were not afraid to get more vulnerable and say what was on their mind. And I think now there's a lot of like modern music that is really generic, and it really doesn't say anything. It's catchy, but like you don't get a lot out of it. There's songs that I could listen to and the next day have forgotten completely about them.
I listen to a lot of instrumental, especially instrumental metal. And for a while, I toyed with the idea of putting out an instrumental metal record.
Yeah.
Right.
Have you listened to Russian Circles?
Oh yeah, I love Russian Circles.
Yeah.
They're great. I was so sad for them when their gear got stolen, right? And then they had to GoFundMe and they're awesome. They have a new record out, I think I need to hear.
Yeah, I think it's coming out soon. Yeah, for me, yeah, if it's good instrumental music, I would dig it. So you were saying earlier that you're working on a follow-up, and that one's gonna be more doomy metal. How far along?
I've got 10 demo tracks. Who knows how many will be finished. There's a 14-minute kind of like drone doomy. Who knows, right?
Does it have like shoegaze too?
Yeah, a little bit of shoegaze. I haven't tracked any vocals yet. And really, that's where a lot of decisions happen for me.
Yeah.
Like how do I get my voice to sound the way I want it to sound here? What do I do? But ultimately, we'll see what happens. It's got a really sort of psychedelic vibe. There's one song, and I'm probably going to regret saying this, but there's one song that the demo title is ZZ Top song.
Okay.
And it is not at all a ZZ Top song, but there's a moment for like 10 seconds where it's like, wow, that really sounds like Billy Gibbons.
Yeah, but there's a lot of bands that when they're tracking and doing they put like silly names just to remember.
Oh, absolutely.
And obviously, then they change the name. But
the working title, and then you've got to like erase the working titles from your memory and remember what you actually called the songs. So yeah, I'm hoping to get some work done on it and get it out in the world. We'll see what happens. I'm trying to decide if it's going to be another album or singles or, who knows.
Or another EP.
Or another EP.
Yeah, because right now in today's world, it's more about like EPs or everyone wants fast. But your EP is longer than some albums, especially like a grindcore album that it has like 18 songs and it's like 22 minutes or something like that. So
maybe one day I'll make an album like that. I don't know. I mean,
yeah,
I'm a big doom metal fan. Right. So like I am not in the vinyl world. It is a-okay with me if there is one song on a whole side of the record. And that's pretty limiting commercially.
Yeah.
But you got to make the music you want to listen to.
That is correct. Yeah, you're gonna make music that you love. So I know that right now the EP is on the digital platforms. Do you have some plans to release it physically sometime?
We'll see how it goes. Most indie artists don't make any money. And if I were independently wealthy, yeah, I would totally do a vinyl run. It's mastered for vinyl, so that could be, it would be really cool to hold it. That goes along with your earlier question about playing it live.
Yeah.
I think if I were to play it live, there would absolutely be physical things that people could have or purchase. But it really depends. It depends on the feedback I get. It depends on whether or not I win Mega Millions. It depends on a whole lot of things.
Yeah, no, but I really hope that people that haven't discovered this project will see this interview and listen to the music. So I'm glad when you sent me a message, I'm like, oh, I have a channel where I do stuff, and I listen to the album. I'm like, yeah, I would totally be up to talk with you and talk about this EP because it's interesting. Plus, you got me with the 90s sound.
And I'm gonna get some people and not others, right? Like, I mean, it's just
there's probably people that hate that sound, but at least for me, it's the sound that I grew up with, and I still listen to all those bands. But but I kept listening to new things. So before I let you go, it's I would like to ask you, like, what is an essential album that you could not live without, and why?
Ooh, I can only pick one.
You could pick two or a few. Yeah, I know it's hard.
It's so hard. To Bring You My Love by PJ Harvey. The sound on that record is just so great. And the stuff that she does with her voice, right? Like so anybody on the channel who hasn't followed her career, it's wild, right? She's a different persona on every record. And that one, there's this moment in the title track that even all these years later just gives me chills. It's that minor to major shift, and it just, whew. So that one for sure. Oh man, this is tough. I mean, I feel like I have to say Daydream Nation because I'm wearing a Sonic Youth shirt. That was actually, no, Sister was the first Sonic Youth record I ever heard. So let's go with that, because I heard that and was just like, wow, this is what music can do. Right? Like with even the production, right? It's kind of lo-fi, but there are these moments of just absolute melodic clarity and beauty in a really noisy soundscape. So I'd go with either one of those two as well.
No,
it's really long, but the Zoom is saying we only have a few minutes left. So.
Oh yeah, but yeah, I know. Yeah, but yeah, that's okay. Yeah, we can talk a little bit more. Yeah, God damn you, Zoom. But yeah, yeah, but no, those are great choices. Like sometimes it's hard to pick just a few Like,
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to say like what genre, right? Because I'm thinking like Soma by Windhand is a really important record to me. Earlier we were talking about Russian circles. I mean, it's kind of like, what season is it? What mood am I in? But
yeah.
overall, yeah, To Bring You My Love is one that to me is just absolutely timeless.
Yeah, to me, like some albums, like it depends. Like some albums remind me more of like there's this is a summer album, or this is like a breakup album,
Yeah.
or this is just an album to have fun. Like it all depends on like the mood. So yeah, it's different albums to me, and plus they take, like we were discussing earlier, some music takes you back to earlier time memories, and uh, I think that's important sometimes. So I want to show the artwork one last time for people to check it out. So this is not EP. You only thought you were imagining it. You can stream it. I know it's on Spotify. Can people buy it on Bandcamp?
Yeah.
And so if you like what you hear, buy it on Bandcamp.
Yeah, it's
It's on
everywhere.
the social medias. And if, like we were saying earlier, if you like that type of music, PJ Harvey, early Liz Fair, 90s alt rock with some like doom influence to it, I think you will dig this. And plus the lyrics. You need to. This is an album that is. It's pretty much chill, but it's an album that is great to listen to with headphones
Mm.
and reading the lyrics. Because you can get more into it when you read the lyrics, in my
That's
opinion.
a that's a
Yeah.
super high compliment. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So, Kate, I want to thank you for taking some time of your afternoon Sunday, to talk with me about DP and talk about different issues. I really enjoyed our chat, and hopefully more people can get into Nott, and hopefully you can get a band and maybe you can play these songs live, because I think that would be kick ass.
That would be great. I would love it. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, people, until next time, this is Hector, the Shield doing a couch, and I'll see you right here on the couch. Thank you and good night.